So I'll let you know like with GlideRecord what are the things we can like how we can use GlideRecord differently, and after that I'll start with UI policies. Okay. Okay. So here whenever we use GlideRecord for scripting, okay. So we use while statement sometimes and if statement sometimes. Okay. So whenever we are expecting more than one record and we want to loop through that particular record, then we will be using while loop. Okay. So I'll show you how this particular code gets executed. Okay. So if you see it, the code which they have written, this is a glide record. They're gliding the table called CMDB CI. Okay. In that CMDB CI, there is a class name which is CMDB CI RAG. Okay. They want to print those CI names. Okay. So all the CI names they want to print. So they have used while loop. Okay. So here, if you see it, it is encoded like it is in a block of code, and this is written in a function. Okay. So and this particular function is callable by that itself. So these kind of function which we call is a self invocable functions or immediately invocable function expression. Okay. So like if you see any function is included in brackets and it is calling itself there itself, then we call it as immediately invoked function expression. Okay. So these immediately invoked function expressions are, so generally we don't name them. Okay. We don't name them, and we will be calling them as soon as that particular code gets executed. Okay. So like the syntax will be like this function, and we will be like it won't have any name. Generally how we'll write the function, we will be writing function name followed by brackets and curly braces. With that we'll be writing the code, but here we won't give any name, and this particular function is encoded in brackets and we are calling it there itself. That's why we call it as immediately invocable function expression. Okay. So generally the function will be like this. Okay. Normal function will be like this, where it has to create one object, like where this particular add is a for example, add is a function which will be adding to the particular global object. But if you use it like this, it won't store anywhere. It will just execute it. Okay. So we can call it from anywhere, other like any place. But here in this case, we can't call from anywhere, but it will be executing as soon as compiler reaches here. Okay. So so if you don't want to call it from anywhere, you want to just test it out, or you want to get executed from there itself, then we can use this IIFE or immediately invocable function expressions. Okay. Even we can give names to that particular function, functions, but there won't be any use even if you give the function name to those functions. Okay. So these we call as immediately invocable functions. Okay. So I'll show you normally, and like for example, this is the code. Okay. So this is the code I want to run. here it acts as a single statement because we are in like it is in a brackets, and after that brackets we are calling this function itself. Okay, so it acts as a single statement. Why? Because we are the function which we are giving, this function we are giving in the brackets, and we are calling it there itself. That's why it will be immediately invoking. We don't we don't need to wait for it to just call. It will be getting called immediately once it reaches here. Okay. So generally, how for example, I'll show you. So in the background script, normally we'll be writing the code like this. Okay, we can write the code like this. Okay, we have some CIs there. Okay, with that particular class name. Okay, so somewhere here, like for example, I have another function as well. Okay, which says something like get inc details. So even in this particular function, I will be able to access that particular, for example, gs.import of grci dot. Let me find, for example, let me give name itself. Okay. So I am printing CI found with the name, and then I am in this particular function. So this is a new function which I have created, and I am calling that particular function later. So like here I got few details with CI found, but if you see the last print, okay, here even it is also giving me the result. Okay, why? Because like I have written one more function and I am calling that. So if you see here, okay, so this is some other code and this is some other code, but I am able to access the variables of this particular global variables in this particular function. Okay, so it might be security constraint. Okay, and I don't want this particular code to be visible outside, or I don't want this particular code to be like available in the global. So what I can do, I can encode all this code in a function. Okay, so how we'll be writing self enclosable function is like this. Okay, so we'll be writing like this, and we'll be calling as soon as possible here itself. Okay, so now this will be getting executed here, and it won't be visible outside because it's encoded within that particular function itself. So here actually I should get undefined or error. Okay, let's see. So CI found I got, but the function which I don't get. Still it is available, but so here it is still available, but like if you write in self encodable function, like it will be immediately invocable. Actually it should not be available. We'll see in MDN once. So immediately invoked function is that runs as soon as it defined. Okay, so whenever you define, like it will be running as soon as we just that particular thing gets executed. We don't need to wait. We don't want to use that, like reuse that. So then in those cases, we'll be using that. Okay. So just remember that as I didn't cover this particular functionality in JavaScript, I was just telling this immediately in movable function. So like if the query returns multiple items, we'll be using while statement. Okay. But if it returns only one record, or if we need only one record, then we'll be using if here. Okay. For example, this particular incident, we are adding the query as priority is 5 and category is inquiry. Okay. So here we want only one item to be printed, or one item we want, then we can use if. Okay. So in those cases, we can write like this. Okay. Like if you want only one item, you can even use set limit function in like GlideRecord, gr.incident.setLimit1, and then you can use if. And whenever you are querying with sysid, where sysid is that particular sysid, then also you can use if, because only one record will be getting. Okay. So here, if you see, set limit statement helps the performance, because one record, we want only one record. So in those cases, what we can do, we can use set limit. Okay. With this particular set limit, we can only restrict only we can get only one record by saying the database that we need only one record. Okay, then we can use if statement. Okay, so whenever we expect only one record, we use if, and if we want multiple records, then we can use while. Okay. Okay, so generally we have written this query, like query means add query, priority 5, categories, inquiry. Similarly, we have encoded query as well, where we can right click and we can directly copy encoded query. So for this particular add query, similar encoded query is this, where add encoded query priority is equal to 5 and categories inquiry. Okay. So we can even use get function. So if we use get function, we don't need to use add query and next. So we can remove these three statements. Okay. Add query and next. We can remove these three statements if you use get. So when we will be using get is, for example, we have one incident and we have the sysid of that particular incident. Okay. We have the sysid of that particular incident. So in those cases, what we can do, we can say incident.get and the sysid we can give, so that we'll be getting that particular record values. So I'll show you this, how we can write using get. Okay. For example, 9, this is the record. Okay. Somehow I have the sysid of that particular incident. Okay. I have the sysid of this particular incident. Okay. So what I can do, first I have to glide that particular incident record. Okay. Yeah, I have to give the table name here. Incident is the table name. So inc dot. So generally, what we'll do, how we'll be doing, we'll be giving add query, field name is sysid, and we'll be giving the sysid. Then what we'll be doing, generally, we'll be passing the query to the database, and then we'll be using if inc dot Next, here I want to print number. Number is in inc dot number, and short description, for example, if you want. Okay, so generally how we'll be writing? We'll be writing like this. So if I print, if I run it, so I'm getting that particular record and short description. So instead of writing all this, what you can do? So instead of writing all this, what you can do? You don't need these statements, which is add query and dot query. So you just need this sys. We can remove these two statements, add query and query. And instead of inc dot next, so instead of inc dot next, you can use get. Okay, and you can pass the sys. So what this inc dot get will do is, if it finds the record with that particular sys, it will return true. Okay, and it is, as it's a glide record, it will have the values. Okay, so inc dot get will return true if it finds the record with this particular sys. Okay, so it is working as same, right? But we can limit how we are getting that record. Okay, so whenever you are executing any of the scripts, okay, so for example, you are using add query and if you are using add encoded query, whenever you want to assess that, like how good is that particular query, you can see here, right? So here it is taking 78 milliseconds, okay, in order to execute this. Okay, so if you use normal query, how much time it was taking, so you can compare that. So whenever you are even you are comparing that, make sure that your particular instance has huge number of data, like how it is similarly it is there on production. Only in those cases you should be able to take that. Okay, so for example, you are writing a big query and you want to assess that how good is that particular query, and you might be modified some parameters in that and you want to check. So in those cases, you can check how much time it is taking here. Okay, you have to make sure your instance has huge data. Okay, then only it will be reliable. Okay, so we'll just see what is this get function and how we can use it. So we can even use others, but let me see if I can find the documentation. Let me go to the reference and server global. GlideRecord. So in this, I want to know about get function. Okay. So the get function, ideally, it accepts two parameters, which is name and which is value. Okay. This method accepts either one or two parameters. If only one single parameter is passed in, the method assumes that it is the sysID of desired record. Okay, if not found, it tries to match the value against the display value. If two parameters are passed in, then first name is the column name, column with the GlideRecord to search. Okay. If multiple records are found, use next to access the additional records. Okay, did you get what it means? So like you can use get as well, but so generally if you pass only one parameter first, it will be first checking with the sysID. Okay, for example, instead of sysID, I want to give the number because it will be checking with the display value. What is the display value of it? You can check what is getting displayed, what field value it is getting displayed on the header. Whenever you open any field, so it is getting displayed, number is getting displayed. So number is a display value. So even if I give the incident number here, it should be able to get the values. Okay, so it is getting the value, but this way it will be taking more time to execute because first it has to check with whether they are passing the sysID or they are passing the number, or like for example, if I pass short description, okay, and I can say instead of short description, what I'll do, it should be well, like for example, I can use caller the sysID. For example, short description. Okay. So here I need to give first parameter as field name, which is short description. But value is email is server down. Okay. So with the short description as well, I'm able to get the values. So it might even return multiple records as well. For example, with the same short description, if I do show matching, I have only one here, but if there are multiple records, even we can, like for example, we have the sysID of David Miller. Let's say we have the sysID of David Miller and we want to use this in this particular get. Okay. So what we have caller ID as sysID. So field name is caller ID. So in this case, it will get all the records with this caller ID. Okay. So here I'm using if. That's why it only prints one thing, one record. So if you want multiple records, then what you can do, if inc.next, instead of if I can use while, because there can be multiple records. I want to print all those as well. So I need to use while inc.next. So it is not recommended to use inc.get, but I'm telling you like how you can use it. Just that's I'm telling. Okay, you can use normal query itself, but if you had to use it, then you can use this way. Okay. So this particular seven. Okay, it's different. Okay. So it printed all the records. If we use while inc.next. Okay. So this way you can print multiple records using get as well. Okay. So but ideally it is not recommended. You can directly give the field name and all in the query itself. But you should know how this works if you pass this. Okay. So I forgot about telling add our query. So our query is, I'll tell you how we can use our query. Okay. So generally, for example, this is incident. Okay. So here we have active true records and caller is David Miller. Okay. So you might want either caller is David Miller or some other guy. Like for example, I want to get the records of even able tutor as well. Okay. I want either David Miller or able tutor. Whoever is the caller, I want the records. So then if I click on run, I guess there are no records with able tutor. Let me get let me check with system administrator. So now 5 records. After running, there are 6 records. Okay, with system administrator as well, we have 1 record. Let me remove this. Let it be there. So I want active records with either caller is David Miller or caller is system administrator. So generally, what we can do in the most of the cases, you can directly right click and copy query. Okay, directly copy query, and what you will be doing, you can do inc dot add encoded query, and you can pass this query. Okay, and then inc dot query. While inc dot next, here you can just print. So I got 7 records, 6 records. Yes, we have how many records here? We have 6 records. So we got 6 records. Okay, so generally, if it is add query, what we'll be doing? We will be using add query, and we'll be giving the like active true and caller ID is something like that. But here we have or query. So if we have to write in the add queries, how you can write is, I'll tell you. Okay, so first you can use this particular GlideRecord, and whatever the add query is there. Okay, whenever you want to apply encoded query to it, you have to take that in a variable. So it will be returning you. It will be returning you the add query, like the query which is category equals to hardware. It will be returning QC, and you have to add or query to it. Okay, so once you add or query, so it will be adding that particular or query to that. So here QC holds. So for example, so we are adding or query as category as network to that particular query. Okay. So whenever you do incident.query, that particular query will get passed. So I'll show you. I will tell you the easiest way later. Okay. For example, so the easiest way for adding like the add encoded query itself, but you should understand whenever you have to write using R query in some conditions. Okay. So whenever, so generally how we'll be writing add query as active true. Active true. Okay. So if you go for the add query documentation, So if you go for the add query documentation, so in the returns, okay, in the returns, it will be returning you the query condition, a reference to the query condition that added to the glide record. Okay, it will be returning some reference to that particular query condition which you can hold in a variable. Okay, so I want to, like, whatever it returns that particular query, I want to hold it. So where QR is some variable which holds that particular query, and to this particular, whenever you want to add R query, you have to add to this particular variable, because this particular variable holds the query here. Okay, if it is add like one more AND query, we can directly use add query, but if it is R query, you have to give the R query to this particular reference. Okay, so then you have to use QR dot add encode add R query. Okay, add R query is add R condition is the function which will be taking that particular R query. Okay, so add R condition you have to give, and you can give. Okay, so here first we have to add the caller ID, then we can give one more caller ID. For example, first caller ID should be in AND, then we can give. Let me remove this. So first, this is one AND query, and I want to do one more AND, which is add query of caller ID. Okay, caller ID is this particular SysID. Okay. So the reference to this particular add queries will be, we can have here. So what is the reference? Where some QR is reference. So for QR dot add R condition. So here the R condition is here, right? So I want to add the R condition after this. So whatever the query which is built here, I want to add R condition. So the add R condition function I have to use for caller ID, and you can give the SysID. Okay. So if I run it, I'll get those records itself, 6 records. Okay. So it is working. So whenever, if it is confusing for you, you can directly use this particular encoded query. Otherwise, what you can do, instead of storing it in a variable and then writing, if it is a simple one or condition, instead of storing it in a variable, what you can do, you can directly add this or condition beside this. Okay, so you can keep just dot, and you can give the or condition here itself. Okay, like then also you will be getting the same result. Okay, so it will be applied on this, like this will return something. First it will return something, on that we are adding our condition. So there we were just holding in a variable, but now we are directly adding here. Okay, even that will also give you the same result. Is everyone understand this, or should I re-explain it? Hello? Hello? Any doubts here? Okay. So whenever you use R query, you have to use odd R condition. You can directly use after this query using this dot, or you can store this particular query reference in one particular variable, and you can add that particular R condition to that. Okay, which is same. So in GlideRecord, what we have, we can check. So whenever you want to insert a new record, you can use initialize function or new record function. So the difference I'll tell you, initialize versus new record. Okay. I already told you, whenever you use new record, you can get already by default values as well. But whenever you use initialize function, you won't get. Okay. Even there is some video as well on this. You can check on the YouTube. What is the exact difference? Okay. Okay, initialize creates empty record suitable for the population before insert. So initialize generally creates an empty record, but new records creates glide record and sets the default value for the fields and assign unique ID for the record. So assign unique ID means that is a sys ID. Okay. So if you use initialize, it will just create an empty record, but if you use new record function, it will have the sys ID, okay, for you, which will assign unique ID. Okay. The difference which I shown you already, right? So it is better to use new record instead of initialize. Initialize was the old function. Okay, now we are using new record. Okay, so you should use new record whenever you are writing, whenever you want to insert a new record. Okay, so you can, whenever you want to insert, you will be giving the like GlideRecord object gr incident dot field name values, and then you can use gr dot insert so that it will be inserting that particular record. Okay, so whenever you want to update, yes.
Whenever I want to create a from incident, I want to create a problem, right?
Yes.
When I click on, I mean, there will be a UI action. When I click on that, the create a problem, the problem will be creating,
Yes.
right? In that scenario, we can use initialize or else new record also.
Like that, you can either use initialize or a new record. Okay, you can use any one of them. But better way is using new record. So if you use new record, what happens? All the default values will be auto populated, and
Okay.
it will be much easier. Like unique ID will also be assigned to that particular uh, glide record, which is problem record here. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
So like initialize was old function. New record, they have, like, as there are some disadvantages with this particular function, they introduced one more function which is new record, which is recommended. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thanks.
So instead of using like whenever you want to insert something before assigning values, okay, after the glide record statement, you have to use gr dot new record. Okay, and whenever you want to update something, so generally, in order to update that particular record through the code, we have to get those records first. So in order to get those records, we have to use add query, and we can get each of the records. Okay, and we can, for example, we want to update the comments. Okay, so you can get, like, we can update the comments gr dot comments equals to something, and then we can update. So before updating something, you can just keep a log and check whether you are getting the correct records or not. Okay, so because whenever you write any script, before updating or before inserting, or you like in cases of deleting, so first you should check whether actually you are getting the correct records or not. So how you can uh, ensure that you are getting the correct records? Okay, you can first use get encoded query to check whether you are getting the correct query, like you are passing the correct query or not. And you can use get row count. So in order to check how many records we are getting. So it is just for the logging purpose. And in the background script, you can check how many records you are getting and what is the query it is getting passed. Okay. So in order to check what is the query it is getting passed, we can use get encoded query. And what is the number of records we are getting, to check that we use get row count function. Okay. For example, this is the query. Okay. So first what I did, I have written CMDB CI and name is SAP Web 03 in that CMDB CI. So I want to check whether this particular query is like what is the query it has been formed and what is the count of those records. So I want to check it. So I have commented it. I am not updating it now. Okay. So when like I got query is name equals to SAP and how many records I got? Only one record. Okay. So equal to after equal to I got one. So that means I got only one record. Okay, which is like expected. I want to update only one record. So like first generally how we'll be doing, we'll be checking like this. Okay. So name is SAP Web 03. So here I am getting only one record. So even I expect only one record here. So before updating that record, I want to ensure that that is the same record I am getting. So I have just commented this particular update statement and I'm checking what is the query it is getting passed and what is the count of those records. So if I confirm it, then if you want to update from the background script, you can remove this. Okay. Otherwise, if you want to use this, you can use it in that particular script and you can remove this logs. Okay. So we have few special functions which is set workflow false and auto sys fields false. So when these we will be using, we'll check. Okay. So whenever we are updating multiple records, mass updating. Okay. And so generally in the production, what happens? You might be like some agent might be working on it and you want to update few things. Okay. But you want to update multiple records and you don't want your name to be coming in updated by. Okay. So we will be tracking the records who updated and we will be checking that whenever some works happens or whenever we debug. Okay. And we just want to update those records. We don't want to run the business rules or update the all the 6 fields which are like modification count and updated by. So updated on and updated by and update count. So we don't want to modify these records. Okay. So generally in the production, what happens? Okay. So if there are some mandatory fields are there. Okay. So whenever some record gets inserted and some field is mandatory, because of that, some issue might be happening like form is not opening at all or some other issue. Okay. So in order to fix that or in order to like assign to some group or something else, you want to update that, but you don't want your name to be coming in updated by, and you don't want all the business rules to be run on that particular record. So we have two functions, which is set workflow false and auto sys field false. Set workflow false, if you use, what happens is it won't run the business rules and it won't run the workflows. And auto sysfield false, what it will do, it won't execute the system fields. Okay, it won't update the system fields, and it won't run the business rules. So whenever there is some requirement like that, whenever you are set to update from the update on the like that particular query, if it is going on the production, you should use these. Okay, first before updating you should check, is it the query passing correctly and how many rows we are getting. So then you can uncomment this update statement and you can run that. Okay, so every record, generally every record you update, in the update field you will be having the name and when it got updated. So we don't want to change that. So in those cases what we can do, we can use auto sys fields false. Okay, which will not update the system fields, and you don't want run the business rules as well, then you can use set workflow false. Is there any doubts here? I'm considering is no. Okay. So if you are, whenever you are doing delete, you should be very careful. So you should check what are the records you are deleting before actually deleting it. Okay, you should have the log statement. What is the query getting passed? In order to check what is the query it is getting passed, you can use gr dot get encoded query, where we'll be having what is the query it is getting passed, and get row count will be giving as the count. Okay, so you can first you can define some variable and repeat through delete count, increment this delete count, and like here we are just querying it and we have commented this delete record, and we are checking how many records will delete if we uncomment it. So before actually deleting it, we should check how many records we are getting and what is the count of that. And after confirming it only, you can uncomment this particular gr.delete record function, so that all the records which matches that particular query will get deleted. Okay, so whenever you are updating or deleting some background script, you shouldn't do it directly. You should actually check how many records we are getting and the records which are we are getting are correct or not. Then only we should update and delete from the background script. And whenever you are running on the production system, some query to be run, you should use set workflow false if you do not want to run the business rules. And if you do not want to update on your name and time, then you should use auto sys fields false. Okay, so you should be aware of these functions and these things whenever you want to use GlideRecord. Okay, is everything clear here? Hello. Okay, so I'll tell you about first about client script, and then I can come to Glide Ajax and all. Okay.
Sunil,
Yes.
if possible, in the sense, could you please explain about how we'll use glide aggregate and stringify stringify and parse into parts flow?
Yeah, like as we have just learned about GlideRecord, I want you people to practice GlideRecord how much it's possible.
Mhm.
So take your own examples or real-time examples. Okay, practice
Okay.
GlideRecords first. Okay, Glide aggregate we will be rarely using. Okay,
Okay.
that's why
Okay.
I'm not forcing now, but before learning how to use GlideRecord, I want you to learn about GlideRecord fully. Okay.
Sure, sure.
Okay. So I'll be coming to Glide Aggregate later after telling the client like UI policy, client script, business rules. After telling all this, I'll be coming to Glide Aggregate. Okay. Meanwhile, you
Sure.
will be familiar with GlideRecord. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thanks.
Okay. So the time is up now. So tomorrow we can start with UI policies and client script. Okay. And then we can talk about how we can get the data on the client side from the server side using Glide Ajax. We can talk about that. Okay. So